The talk, what a timeline. My wife had a rough childhood growing up. Father was missing most of her life. I was with her when they reconnected at the age of 18. She has self-esteem problems, probably from that. She is absolutely beautiful, a real amazing woman, and yet she sees herself as ugly and worthless many times. To many people, they would probably have looked at our marriage and seen the perfect couple. I think her friends were very envious of her. Outwardly, I was a very good husband. I always worked to make her feel loved and cared for. I always told her how beautiful she was and how much I loved her, how I appreciated her. Did the random flower and card thing. Went out of my way to make her feel special. A blessing and a curse. I think all that stuff made it more difficult to accept the part I was playing in her unhappiness. I loved and cared for her very much, but I didn't listen to her the way she needed. I didn't know how. I only shared my true feelings when I was lashing out in anger, which was not often. I wanted to protect her because she was already so hard on herself. I didn't want to add to that. I had the best of intentions, but all it did was drive a wedge between us. I helped around the house, but only after she asked. I was bad at anticipating her needs. Again, some people would be happy to get any help, but that is where I made the mistake. I told myself I was a great husband and she should be happy about me, always trying to justify myself instead of sucking it up and giving her what she needed. She told me for years she felt like we were just roommates, and in my head, I thought it was just her general disposition, or a woman thing. I thought it would just get better as time went on, or that she would just one day snap out of it. I never felt responsible for her disposition. Things went downhill when her father passed away. I know that kind of thing causes people to reflect and whatnot. A few months later is when she started going out with her friends more. We started MC because we were fighting more and both were getting tired of it. At first MC made it worse for me, because I was just chugging along before. After MC I realized how much crap I was putting up with. Things came to a head one day when we were arguing about nothing. She was seriously pissed off at me and I hadn't done anything. I knew that day was the last day of our marriage, but I told myself I would give it 100% for one last shot before calling it quits. I pulled out the love dare from my nightstand. It had been sitting there for a few years, and in that first page I realized my part. I had been trying to be right instead of happily married. I had justified that my wife was crazy instead of taking personal responsibility for what I could. Overnight I completely changed. 100%. I started really listening. I was able to start having empathy. I learned to share my feelings even though I knew they would cause some initial pain. Importantly for her, I was proactive about helping her around the house, taking charge of the house and kids before she had to ask. I became the perfect beta husband. It's that change that allowed me to detect something amiss in our next counseling session. She said something about being addicted to butterfly feelings, and how it was nice to get flirted with when she was out. I got that little annoying feeling in my stomach and could tell something wasn't right. I had been completely trusting of her our entire relationship, but I started snooping that night. I saw some messages to old friends, new friends, girls. No neon signs but little things that didn't sit right. She was a little flirty with some of these guys. Nothing overt, just flirty. Talking about hot guys to her girlfriends. Telling other guys they looked good. Reminiscing about good times with old friends, about how she used to like them. That was about the time she started the love you but not in love with you talk. Needing space, feeling smothered, needing to find herself, wanting to be free, seeing if she could make it on her own. Like 100% standard cheater's script. I let her go out with her friends and chat with old guy friends. It was making her feel good about herself. I wanted her to feel good. I wanted her to be happy. I wanted her to find herself. I had no idea what it all meant. I hadn't been reading about affairs online. I had no idea this was standard cheater stuff. Before I go on, I should say that one thing I royally screwed up on in my marriage happened at the very start. I had a friend I met on the internet from college. We had met a few times. We were really good friends. We talked a lot and liked each other but never made anything of it. She got married before I met my wife. She let me into her marriage, and when I met my wife, I let her into mine. Nothing inappropriate ever went on. I always told my wife when we talked, kept my messages and offered to show them to my wife. But when we first got married, she didn't like it. She didn't think it was appropriate and wanted me to stop. I had told her everything I just said, about old friends, both married, not hiding anything. In my mind I was justified and she was being irrational. This girl was one of the only friends I had that I could share things with. I didn't want to just give her up. It really bothered my wife, but I did nothing about it. In essence, I crap on her feelings. So back to where we were, a few things happened in short time. She started texting this old friend of hers, and she started deleting all of her texts and FB messages. Her logic was simple. The kids always had her phone and would dial people she texted. Made sense to me. I had seen it happen. I did not like them talking so much, but I was still talking to my friend. Didn't want to give that up. And I definitely felt hypocritical about asking her to stop talking to her friend while I still talked to my mine. But I was still uneasy about everything, so I started leaving her FB on at work, and that's when my world started crashing down. I was sitting at work, doing my thing. Actually, I was alternating between work and texting my wife. Counseling was off and on. I felt like we were making progress, but she was very wishy-washy. The text messages were good, love you, see you soon type stuff. I was flabbergasted when I switched over to FB and saw a stream of messages from the last 24 hours. This random guy, an old friend of her dad's, was exchanging messages with her. She was talking about how she liked to look but not touch, how she thought he was hot. They were talking about her rack. Then they started talking about sending pictures to each other. This may not seem that bad to some people now. It doesn't to me. But that completely shattered my world. My wife is a strong, sweet, Christian woman. She was my first, and we both waited to sleep together till we were married. We had 2 kids. She worked at a church. The thought of her acting so whorish cut me deep. My arms literally started shaking and I could hardly see. I ran to my car and drove to our MC screaming and crying. I could not believe that in the middle of texting me she could be talking to this guy about sending and receiving pictures. I confronted her. She told me she felt dumb, they would never talk again. She committed to me 100%, said how sorry she felt and all that jazz. Things actually picked up from there. Our relationship was really growing again. But she still seemed in angst about her life. At that point I read all I could about cheating and affairs. Saw she had all the signs. But I rationalized that this was my wife. She may have the signs but she isn't there yet. Nothing was going on. My wife was telling me nothing was going on. I had to believe her. I confronted her on the texts and deleting them, let her know I didn't appreciate it. And she cut down quite a bit on them. Still kept them deleted though, it was a habit. After some more counseling sessions we were really reconnecting. We started enjoying each other's company. We were going out on fun dates. She told me she was looking forward to our relationship, but she still at times would tell me she wanted to find herself. Wanted to see if she could make it on her own. I didn't care. I knew we both loved each other and things were going to get better. Halloween night we went on a date and it was the best time of our life. We had so much fun. We both talked about how much fun we had and how much we loved each other. We went home and had a great time. Things were on the up and up. The next night we both wanted to go out but couldn't get a babysitter. Her crappy single friend called her and said she was going downtown that night and wanted her to come. She had a hotel room, and they could stay there the night without having to drive home drunk. I expressed my concern but didn't want to be controlling as she put it, and so she left. Midnight I got a call. She wasn't that drunk but her friend was, so they were going to stay. Everything in my body wanted to tell her to take a cab and come right home. But again, didn't want to sound desperate or like an ass. The next morning, determined not to hover, I took the kids out. I didn't want to be home when she got there. I wanted her to feel like she missed out by going out. We stayed out till 1 p.m. When I got home, she was still not home. Everything took a turn for the worse from there. She started getting agitated about everything. She stopped all physical contact. She would actively avoid me physically. She started texting all day to her crappy single friend. Something that was odd because she used to hold this person in contempt for being such a beast. She got super secretive of her phone and phone conversations. She started taking drives just to get away. I'll never forget the time I kissed her forehead goodnight and she recoiled like it burned her. Through all the books I'd read I knew something was going on. I just refused to believe it. I figured she met someone while she was out and she was talking about maybe wanting to see them or date or something. Or maybe her crappy friend was pregnant and she didn't want me to know. But I had been reading Love Must Be Tough and I was starting to get my balls back. I told her if she didn't want to respect me, maybe we should separate. Instead of protesting, she said it would be a good idea. I got her the papers to review that night. The counseling session that night I told her if she deleted another text again, I was leaving. She promised she was trustworthy, she was committed, nothing was going on. The ride home was unpleasant. We were 2 complete strangers in the car ride home. The next day I woke up and checked her phone, messages to the guy. Good, she got the hint, no funny business. The hacker in me though didn't trust it 100%, so I ran it through her phone records and that's when I saw it. She had selectively deleted half her texts. That was so much worse than before. Now she was actively being deceitful to me. I checked her phone and found she created a fake email and FB account. I could not believe the deceit. I didn't tell her anything. I just said, I was going to wait till the papers were signed, but I'm leaving right now. You have a week to find a place to live. I'm staying at my parents'. We are not separating, we are divorcing. And I took all her credit cards and gave her the grocery money for the week and left. It was amazing to me that during that time she was still playing innocent. What do you think I did this time? What did you find out? Why won't you stop playing games and just tell me what you think you know but really don't know? Big deal. I deleted a couple texts. Get over it. Amazingly, though I was leaving because of the deceit, I still believed nothing was going on. I thought he was helping her get ready to leave, advice about divorce and finances and planning to leave and whatnot. At work I told my boss what was going on and that I was divorcing and needed some time off. I went back to my desk to get some stuff and even worse than the first time, I got my heart ripped out of my ass. I don't know how or why or what or anything, but popping on my screen, was messages from the night before from her FB. I didn't even know I left it on, and she knew I was checking, so I don't even know why they did it. The messages were from her friend. I couldn't see her responses, but I could see what he wrote to her, talking about the fantasies she had been having, how they could act on them now. How she wanted to come out there for a trip and they could see each other all week, what outfits she would wear, how he was going to pound her so hard she wouldn't be able to walk straight. A piece of me died right there. All that naivety I had and trust was completely destroyed. All the signs made complete sense. I was a fool for not trusting my gut and for being so naive. Turns out she had been dirty texting this guy since a few days before I had read the love dare. They took a break because they both knew it wasn't right and she wanted to work on the marriage. But it was back on in full force not 24 hours after we talked about separating. My wife, who I believed was trustworthy to that point, was a complete lying, deceiving. Everything she said to me over the last few weeks had been a sham. All the gaslighting, making me feel guilty or controlling, promising nothing was going on, committing to me 100%. All the work I had been doing on our marriage. I started putting two and two together. She was texting this crappy friend of hers every day all day long. What else went on? I wondered what happened Halloween night. That was when crap seemed to hit the fan. Was she seeing some guy locally too? She had been talking about cohabitating instead of divorcing for the kids. I figured she was playing me for money and was going to try to steal from me at any time, probably to fund her vacation to go see the e-partner. I called her and told her I needed her to go with me to the bank to sign some papers. She tried to delay it. I was more and more convinced she was trying to screw me. She told me she wanted to talk and see if we could work things out, and I let her know I would talk to her after she signed the papers. My plan was to see what she would tell me. If she led me on, I would know she was just after my money. I was 95% sure I was going to hear more stories, so I went expecting to continue divorcing. On the way to the bank, I started thinking about how I would destroy her and this guy, his supposed friend who was a good Christian guy. He was a counselor and I had messaged him making sure he was responsible and didn't have any malicious intent with my wife. Naive and dumb, I know. His response was he would never do anything like that to ruin a marriage. They were just friends. He enjoyed helping people in their marriages. Funny that he said that after they had texted for 3 days straight and sent him pictures. I checked the phone records and for literally 3 full days they back and forth every minute. I had my plan all worked out. I was going to message them both on FB. I can't even write what I was planning because it is so evil and twisted, but I was assured neither of them would engage physically for the remainder of their life ever again. I was in the process of planning how I would out her on her own FB, changing the passwords and posting all the back and forth messages and how she had been lying and cheating this whole time while I worked hard on the marriage. Luckily God had been working on me those few weeks, and in the middle of my rage showed me that is not the man I am nor who I want to be. He reminded me that I have been unfaithful to him, and yet he still loves me and shows me mercy even though I don't deserve it. I promised to myself that I was going to be a man of character and treat her with love and respect and dignity no matter what happened. When she was there to sign the papers, she was still in her mood. She made me seem like the bad guy. We got home and before she said a word I let her know. I want you to know that I'm willing to listen to whatever you have to say. But I want you to know that if you aren't ready to be 100% honest with me, then don't say anything. I told her if she was not 100% truthful about everything, we were 100% done and there was no way we would ever reconcile. I also told her before she started that no matter what happened, I was going to treat her with love and respect, because she was the mother of my kids and that I did care about her as a person. I mentioned that I hoped she finds happiness in her life, and that regardless of what happens with us, she won't find happiness on her current path. She still tried to play games somewhat. She was not immediately forthright. She would not tell me anything for a few minutes. She wanted to know what I knew first. I told her what I knew did not matter, because she was going to tell me everything and be 100% open. She asked what I wanted to know. My plan was, start with the unknowns and work my way to what I did know. If she lied about what I did know, I would know she lied about the stuff before. So, I mentioned a trip she took a few weeks before. What happened on the trip? I could tell she was honest. She was 100% quick on the response. She was with her friends and relatives the whole time. I knew that. Then I asked her what happened on Halloween night. Crickets. She turned her head to the side. She was trying to hide from me. And before she could say anything, I knew that my worst fears were confirmed. What do you know? Who told you? I wouldn't have it. She started crying. Interesting that up until this point I had imagined many times what would happen if my wife ever cheated on me. You replay the possibility in your head, and you imagine that you will be a fountain of rage and anger. But when I heard her say the words, I was completely calm. I cannot describe why I did not get angry or upset. I stopped caring about me for those few minutes, and I had empathy towards my wife. Not because I was planning on forgiving her, quite the contrary. I was all but sure we would be divorced at that point. I felt bad for her because I knew that she had ruined her life and could see in her face that she knew it too. She gave me the details of what happened, well, a watered-down version anyway. And I just sat there with her and prayed for her. I let her know that she would be forgiven, that God had forgiven her, that I would still treat her with love and respect even though we wouldn't be married, that she had to turn her life around not for us, but for herself and our kids. My wife started bawling. I guess at that point she started saying all the things you want your wife to say when you get that bombshell. I didn't really even offer anything. I was pretty convinced we were getting divorced, so I wasn't looking for her to prove anything to me. But she started talking about how sorry she felt, how horrible she felt, how it broke her heart to think about the pain she caused me and our family. She said she knew what she wanted. She can't believe how she could ever screw up something so awesome. She told me that she couldn't believe how humble and forgiving I was, and that is why she married me. She talked about how much she loved me and how attracted to me she was, how she was desperate and in so much pain and completely lost and was just trying to fill that void. She told me how I was the perfect husband and she could not have asked for more in a man than what she had seen the last few weeks. She offered me her cell phone. Actually, she offered to throw it away. She told me she would delete her FB account. She would stop going out with her friends. She would never talk to any of these guys ever again. Immediately, she offered to do whatever it took to show me that she could be trusted. She offered for me to take as much time as I needed to rebuild her trust. In essence, she was truly remorseful, even before I knew that was a term. So, to make a long story short, I have chosen to forgive her because I have seen from her actions that she is truly remorseful, and that she was lost and in pain and didn't have the emotional maturity to handle it properly. More importantly, she has recognized her depression and emotional shortcomings and begun working on fixing them. And as far as showing, though I commented that sometimes I feel like there is a spark missing when she looks at me, she has made extreme efforts and progress on showing me love, respect, and working on my needs. From the effort side, I couldn't really ask more, and I see her making improvements every day. At times when I'm feeling insecure, I worry about her cheating again. Other times, yesterday was one of them, and don't ask me why. I couldn't tell you. I'm feeling confident, and I think if she wants to screw up and ruin it, that would be her loss. I think during her emotional affair period, before D-Day, I was smothering and fearful of the loss and was struggling with losing her. Since that time, I have realized a lot about myself, remembered who I was, and feel more secure if things were to not work out. I would be sad, because I love her and I know we can have a great life, especially after these last few months that we have grown so much. But I would not accept any sort of betrayal or dishonesty like that again and would have no regrets about leaving if I saw her acting weird. The emotional affair was with a guy a few thousand miles away. On the girls' night out, she had a one-night thing. Not in any way excusing the behavior because the entire thing reeks of wanting to screw up. But from what I know of the night, she went the whole night without incident, got really drunk right before leaving, and then passed out at the hotel. The guy initiated while she was sleeping. There was a little trickle truth at first because as she explained it to me the first time it sounded like rape. Then she got honest and admitted she wanted it to happen and that's why she didn't stop it. But I confirmed her story through detective work and it is true. Nothing major happened. I'm sure she flirted that night but no kissing or numbers or back alley shenanigans. She got really wasted right before leaving. Like horribly sick, awful, almost hospital wasted, not fun, drunk wasted. She went to bed alone to pass out. The guy came in unannounced and started having fun. It's not excusable, but at least consciously I don't think she meant to cheat that night, or else she would have secured something at the bars, or not passed out alone. Before anyone asks, the guy was a friend of crappy friends and was with them all night. It was not a bar bring back to hook up with. She admitted she flirted with him that night but is adamant she went to bed alone and there was no talk at any point in the night. This is the kind of guy that would screw a drunk married chick, if he could get it in for a few minutes. As for her actions, as mentioned, she cut off all contact with emotional affair guy and has never attempted contacting one-night guy. She stopped going out with her friends to shady places. They go out to dinner at restaurants every once in a while. Verified by me. She gave me full access to her phone and email and FB and even offered to get rid of all of them if I wanted. She committed to continue going to IC and MC. In addition, she has dramatically changed her attitude. She is much more respectful and grateful. She is working very hard on meeting my needs and speaking my love languages. I have another thread about the spark, but from an action standpoint, I feel she's done an amazing job in putting in the effort for us to have a happy marriage. D-Day was a few days after Halloween, so it's been about 3 months. There was about a month of hysterical bonding. That was pretty awesome. We're really close now. I'm amazed at how awesome our marriage is. I've said on here before that if the cheating is what it took to get us where we are, I would do it over again. I don't say that lightly, because there were a few weeks period where I wanted to fall off the face of the earth. And I've never felt anything remotely close to that ever in my life. I've never had the urge to drown my pain with alcohol or drugs before. But the day I gave her the papers, it took every ounce of my strength not to. After you have been betrayed like this, there is absolutely no way you will ever go back to the way you were. I could never let her get away with a fraction of the stuff she did in her wayward period. Not even the actions, but the attitude and relationship would not be able to go that route. Long before she would have the chance to cheat, we would be talking about it in MC, and if I did not get warm feelings about where we were headed, we would be having talks about the prospect you bring up, that R would fail and we aren't married anymore, were initially difficult for me to deal with. As time goes though, I realize that is true for every marriage. The thought that you are safe is only an illusion and reserved for those that have never had a cheating spouse. No one is safe from the dangers of cheating. That could be true for me, but is also true of the 30-year married couple who have never had an issue their entire marriage. If I lived the rest of my life with that fear, I'd never be close to anyone again and would end up a hermit or monk. At some point you have to trust the person, and trusting means you are vulnerable to getting hurt again. Daily, I am putting more and more trust in my wife that she will not screw up. And as I've said, so far, she has shown me no reasons that I cannot continue to do so. Few months later, lying awake at 2 a.m., really jacked up tonight, thinking about how our family life is ruined, how our kids won't get to see their mom and dad loving each other anymore. I was thinking about our anniversary we had just 2 months ago, how much fun we had, even though she was stressed for the first half of it, wondering how we got here so fast, essentially going through every emotion that someone in a codependent relationship would go through. What can I do to make this work? How can I fix this? What could I give up to just stick it out? I replayed the tape from our MC session, which was quite horrible and set me back emotionally, and in terms of my wife getting help, 95% sure at this point she is suffering from BPD. I spoke gently and factually for 5 minutes about how my wife's recent behaviors were triggering my emotions from the affair. I got no empathy or understanding from her. She was insistent that she isn't cheating and I am just making stuff up to make her look bad. Even after I mentioned that I'm not out to punish her or make her look bad or accuse her. Just wanted to share how her actions were affecting my emotions and looking for some empathy and understanding. She called me controlling and mentioned that I had been treating her poorly and accusing her and making her feel bad about herself. It was an hour session and I didn't have time nor the desire to correct every statement she was making about me. I was trying to listen and get a fix on what her feelings were. Of course, the counselor had no choice but to assume everything she said was true. My homework for the week was 1. Stop reading her messages and snooping, something I would never agree to do if I was staying married. 2. Stop treating my wife like crap. 3. Start talking to my wife respectfully. At the end I told her my homework was pointless, as at some point I have to stop pretending that I can do more to work on this marriage, and that I believed in my heart that I was already treating her to the best of my ability and giving her as much respect, care, love, and understanding as possible. At the end my counselor undid all the conversation we had in our individual session by just outright believing my wife that I was being controlling and treating her poorly, even though we spent most of the hour discussing the reasonable and well-communicated boundaries I had set up and how my wife is displaying several BPD traits. After everything was said and done, I told my wife flat out, there has been too much boundary crossing and I can no longer accept being with someone who consistently depletes my sense of self. If you want to get help to stop crossing my boundaries, I will be supportive and work on whatever I need to have a happy, healthy relationship. She said she didn't know what I was talking about. I mentioned the sarcastic snide comments and attacks during our conversations, and a complete lack of empathy for my feelings. She told me I do the same thing to her, which I can no longer accept as true. So, we confirmed that we will be moving forward with the divorce. Things she's been saying confirm to me that she wants to move on, though it's hard to tell if that is a defense mechanism, or if the talk about wanting to stay married that she says to everyone else privately is a defense mechanism. I feel like I'm going crazy sometimes, which I know is normal in these situations dealing with someone with BPD. But I hear her say things in confidence, that she is doing great, everything is fine, she feels really strong and finally at peace, and I know she is about to snap. The woman who is assuring everyone that everything is great and she's so strong and at peace is 30 minutes later having panic attacks and an emotional breakdown about everything and saying she needs to go to the hospital. Anyway, this has turned into a rant. I'm out of the house and got some sleep this week for the first time in many weeks, though not tonight obviously. I'm trying to take my life back, exercising, finding activities, and I'm going to a codependency anonymous group next week. Most of the time I've been handling it well, but I just can't shake that ache right now that this is so wrong and we should stay together and just need to work it out. I would give up everything in my life to hear her say, I'm so sorry I've been acting like this. You were right, I need help. I'm going to a therapist to work on getting better. You're the best husband and you're all I want. That should tell you something about how messed up I am. Oh, and moving back in with my parents short-term gave me some insight into how I ended up in all this mess to begin with. I forgot how controlling my dad was. Being on your own for over a decade will do that to you. When my dad started following me around telling me how things needed to be open, shut, turned on and off, I heard my inner dialogue say, just do whatever he's saying and don't make a big deal about it, keep the peace. It reminded me that I had been doing that all my life. I think my childhood was a setup for getting myself in this position. My mom, who has the exact same traits as me in this regard, acted similarly. She just did whatever it took to make the peace, at the expense of her own feelings and sense of self. It sucks to think that I am just now realizing this. I'm just now, after 30 years, deciding that I need to have healthy boundaries and limits and have a right to my feelings. Now after 2 kids, and a failed marriage, and tons of heartache. I didn't mention all the details from our MC session. Basically, I had gotten a DBT specialist in my area, of which there are only 3 and they are extremely busy, to agree to see my wife. My wife had no idea why this person was chosen. She was just going to go and get an evaluation. These specialists are specifically trained to keep people with BPD involved in therapy without necessarily labeling them. What the MC did is actually tell my wife what that specialist does, DBT. What DBT is for. Personality disorders. And then tell my wife she didn't need that in her professional opinion. This had the wonderful effect of validating to my wife that nothing is wrong with her, while also enraging her that I felt she had a specific disorder. Also, any advantage the counselor could have provided is gone, as now my wife would view her with complete skepticism and actually go in defensive instead of open-minded. I was kind of pissed. It was as if she short-circuited my attempts to get help for my wife because I disagreed with her professional opinion, of which she has had 3 visits to ascertain a complex diagnosis that could take months of therapy to uncover. I can't help but think it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe that would have dragged this on longer. Additional hope. My wife's homework was to stop making snide, sarcastic comments. Stop attacking me while sharing her feelings. It makes me sad when you said that instead of "you're so hateful." And seeing an individual counselor. The non-DBT one. So far, the sarcastic comments are still coming, and I'm still being attacked. The counselor I could give a crap about because she won't get anything from it. She didn't say that I treated my wife like crap, but she took what my wife was saying at face value and there was no time to get into specifics. For example, if it came up at the top of the hour I would have asked for details and specifics on how to not treat her like crap, but it was like in the last 30 seconds, so I'm left baffled as to how to actually accomplish this feat. Another comment was made when she said that her friends all said that she wasn't the same since she married me. I asked her who specifically said that and she wouldn't tell me. I suspected it was some twisting of the truth. And it was. The counselor told me that she probably didn't want to say because she felt that I was controlling who she could and couldn't talk to and didn't want to add another person to the list of people she wasn't allowed to talk to. Which I understand. If you listened to my wife at face value you would probably think I was a monster. But the week before in my individual session I gave her the full story, which is that she's not allowed to speak to one person, because she was encouraging my wife to sleep around on me and not tell me about her cheating. And the counselor 100% agreed with me that that was bull crap. So, to watch her do a 180 and then start backing up my wife was pretty annoying. I'm going to call the counselor next week and let her know she can either get with the program and take off the blinders or I'm not going to show up anymore. I don't want to say that I'm not controlling at all, but in the general spectrum of men, I would probably be somewhere in the bottom 10%. There are certain things I don't want her doing right now, like going on trips with certain friends and things like that. That has less to do with my personality and more to do with the fact that we're 6 months out from her infidelity. Until that point, I could give a flip about who she hung out with or what she was doing because I trusted her 100%. Anyway, the level of craziness is increasing every day. Today I posted a Facebook status that was about becoming a better man, and she sent me a page-long text about how I should stop attacking her and how I have my family ganging up on her to like my Facebook statuses aimed at her. Literally one person liked the status. Then in the next sentence she talked about how she wanted us to get back together. And then she asked why I was being so hateful and was pushing so hard to get a divorce. Yesterday I felt guilt, not because of anything I had done, but it was the first day where I thought about her telling me that she wanted therapy and how awful she had treated me and how much she loved me and wanted to be my love slave goddess. And I just thought I wouldn't even want her back if she said that. Now I'm sure that will change many times in the next few days, but I don't know how to respond to that feeling. She's my wife, I love her, I committed myself to her. I've been praying and begging she gets help. If she really did want to get help and go for it 100%, shouldn't I have some desire to want to stay together and work on it? Edit. Oh, and on a side note, saw the lawyer yesterday. I know we shouldn't trust lawyers, but the guy listened to my plan on how to move forward and handle the finances and said, over half my clients that come in here are immature pricks. I can tell just from talking to you for 20 minutes that you are really mature and respectful. And whatever is going on in your marriage is not your fault. Kind of felt good to hear someone say that. even if it was from a soulless liar. Part 2 final ending coming in the afternoon.